ask O'Connor
I
about
haven't
my
asked
credibility.
you a question. Okay?
You are?
When I haven't. So
Oh,
when I
okay,
ask
I'm
you a
sorry.
question, that's when you answer. Otherwise, I'm talking. So,
Excuse me?
with my time, because it's my time, that when we were behind closed doors, you called a number of people liars. You called the Wall Street Journal liars. You called Cassidy Hutchinson a liar. You called
is.
the FBI a liar. And just today, you added to your list, you called my colleague, Congressman Mr. Goldman, a liar as well. It seems like, according to you, the only person that's telling the truth is you, and everyone else is lying.
The question?
It's
or?
not a question.
Oh, okay.
You'll know when I ask you a question, I promise.
Thank you.
So,
What you just watched wasn't a heated TV moment for entertainment. It was a live demonstration of how fact-finding is supposed to work and what happens when it doesn't. Representative Jasmine Crockett did something rare and important in that exchange. She cut through the smoke and mirrors and demanded two simple things from a witness under oath: clarity and accountability. When she told him, calmly but firmly, "When I ask you a question, you answer," she was defending the basic rules that keep oversight from collapsing into theater. There are several lessons in that exchange that viewers should understand, not as partisan talking points, but as civic literacy.
Mr. Bobulinski, do you know who Elections LLC is? Yeah.
Well, it's not a who.
Okay, well, do you know what it is?
Yes, it's a LLC.
Okay, and is it the LLC that your attorney works for?
I believe so, yes.
You believe so, okay. So at this point in time, I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a document indicating that the law firm representing Tony Bobulinski was paid $10,000 as recently as January of this year by the Save America PAC, which you may recognize as Donald Trump's PAC.
Without objection.
Thank you. Now, so far in this hearing, it has felt like the worst episode of The Apprentice. I'm sure you're familiar with that show. It seems like my colleagues and maybe you and some others are trying to become the next vice president of the United States of America. You're auditioning or something like that because, Mr. Bobulinski, I know that you take exception to the fact that your credibility has been called into question over and over. But when someone comes to testify under oath, whether it's before this committee, behind closed doors, or in person, then we have to evaluate someone's credibility. And sir, I definitely have always had issues with your credibility, as I know that you are very well aware of. So let me remind you of what happened behind closed doors.
Well, you should ask O'Connor about my
I haven't
credibility.
asked you a question. Okay?
You are?
When I haven't. So
Oh,
when I
okay,
ask
I'm
you a
sorry.
question, that's when you answer. Otherwise, I'm talking. So,
Excuse me?
with my time, because it's my time, I want to be clear that when we were behind closed doors, you called a number of people liars. You called the Wall Street Journal liars. You called Cassidy Hutchinson a liar. You called
is.
the FBI a liar. You called Rob Walker a liar. You called James Gilliar a liar. You called Hunter Biden a liar. You called Jim Biden a liar. And just today, you added to your list, you called my colleague, Congressman Mr. Goldman, a liar as well. It seems like, according to you, the only person that's telling the truth is you, and everyone else is lying. But I want to move on to something else.
Is that a question?
It's
or?
not a question.
Oh, okay.
You'll know when I ask you a question, I promise.
Thank you.
So, the other thing that I want to talk about is the fact that my colleague from the other side of the aisle talked about the company that we keep. And she wanted to go through a list of people that she felt like were bad company because right now the majority has been relying upon the testimony of someone who's currently sitting in federal prison. And we know that your company is the company of somebody who's been found liable of fraud, as well as defamation, as well as sexual assault, and for whatever reason can't pay his bills at this point in time. But I'm going to ask Mr. Parnas, so this is a question to him. Are you aware if Trump had any associates that have been found guilty of anything?
Yes, lots of them.
Lots of them.
Me included.
You included. Okay, so when you were called here to testify, you weren't called here to testify for any other reason than to tell the truth. Is that correct?
Yes, Congresswoman.
Now, we started this whole sham off because of the 1023. And that was debunked by you, was it not?
Yes, Congresswoman.
way before we started this impeachment inquiry. And you mentioned a number of times this guy by the name of Rudy Giuliani.
Yes.
Now, everybody is so stressed about the fact that Hunter ain't here today. But, Hunter came and testified behind closed doors for over 6 hours. And every single one of them, they weren't limited to 5 minutes. They could ask whatever they wanted to. And there's a full transcript of his testimony. So I don't know what else they wanted to do besides the fact that they wanted to put on a show. But let me tell you something. This whole thing is based upon something that Giuliani came up with.
Yes.
And we tried to subpoena him that's what I remember. If anybody else remember, we asked, we said, hey, we should subpoena Giuliani. But kind of like when we were trying to get his cell phone, they shut it down, right? Like they don't want the facts. But you would agree with me that considering the fact that you were working under Rudy Giuliani at the time that you went over to Ukraine, that he has maybe some valuable information that he could offer this committee as to whether or not there's anything that we should be investigating in the first place.
Absolutely, Congresswoman. I wish that this committee would subpoena Rudy Giuliani, put him under oath alongside me to get to the bottom of the truth of what actually happened in Ukraine and to the manipulation that Trump and Giuliani and the team went to do.
I agree with you, but somehow it doesn't look like we're going to get there, and I thank you for your time.
First, credibility matters more than volume. A witness can shout every accusation in the world, but congressional oversight is built on corroboration, not bravado. Crockett highlighted the obvious red flags. This witness repeatedly called journalists, other witnesses, and official institutions liars behind closed doors. His firm has been paid by a partisan PAC, and he's closely associated with people who have their own legal troubles. That doesn't automatically disqualify everything he says, but it does set the bar higher. When a witness has clear financial ties to a political actor and a pattern of attacking anyone who contradicts him, their claims require independent documentary evidence, emails, bank records, phone logs, sworn testimony from others, before they can be relied on to justify an inquiry or a public charge. Second, process protects truth. Crockett used chamber procedure, asking to enter a document into the record to make an evidentiary point. That $10,000 payment from Save America PAC to the law firm representing the witness isn't a gotcha for its own sake. It's a contextual fact that speaks to motive. Congress isn't a courtroom, but it borrows evidentiary methods. You present documents, you subpoena records, you compare testimony against verifiable sources. Where Republicans rushed to dramatize the witness's claims, Crockett made the exacting move that oversight requires. She insisted the committee treat statements like evidence, not slogans. If committees skip that step, if they let performance substitute for documents, we end up with headlines instead of answers. Third, decorum is not civility for its own sake. It's how you protect the truth. The moment Crockett shut down the interruptions, she wasn't playing gotcha. She was preserving the record. A witness who talks over the questioner, who launches into monologues, or who calls broad swaths of people liars without backing it up, is trying to control the narrative. That tactic works only when it's allowed to drown out pointed, narrow questions that can be answered with specific facts. Crockett's insistence on a measured back and forth is how a committee turns rhetoric into recordable evidence. Now, let's be practical about how viewers can evaluate what they just saw. Before you accept testimony as truth, consider motive. Who benefits if this version of events is believed? Examine corroboration, whether primary sources or independent witnesses support the central claims. Look for consistency. Has the story changed from previous sworn statements or interviews? And finally, observe method. Is the committee using formal investigative tools like subpoenas, or is it relying on spectacle and sound bites? These are the quiet indicators of whether you're watching an investigation or a performance. A few more things to understand about the environment Crockett was operating in. Closed-door testimony and public hearings serve different purposes. Private sessions allow for deep questioning. Public hearings put answers on the record. When Crockett referenced the witness's prior behavior behind closed doors, she was connecting those two worlds, making sure the public saw the same pattern of evasiveness that staffers and members saw in private. That's how real oversight works. It exposes the difference between what people claim in the spotlight and what they admit under oath in the shadows. It's also important to recognize the larger media and political dynamics. Many members use hearings as a stage. Some witnesses come prepared for a viral moment rather than a fact-finding one. Crockett's approach reminded everyone what congressional duty actually looks like, holding the line on process, evidence, and respect for the institution even when the cameras are rolling. So what can you, as a viewer and citizen, take away from this? Don't let outrage drown out observation. Watch who brings documents, who cites verified records, who answers directly, and who pivots to attack others. Oversight is the mechanism that separates government by accountability from government by narrative.